7 old-fashioned frugal living tips. You know when people reminisce about the good old days? I'm not talking about when you were in high school, but when your grandparents were young. Before TikTok and iPhones. You see, while our elders missed out on spending their youth watching people dance on the internet, they did have the luxury of some incredible saving hacks that I'm going to share with you now. Tip number 1: not paying for entertainment. We all deserve to have fun. Well, most of us do anyway. However, if you've been counting your dollars, then you know that going out for nights at the bar, eating at restaurants, or going on vacation has become incredibly expensive. Just the thought of going out means kissing another $150 goodbye. Right now, the average American spends roughly $3,300 a year just on entertainment, which is $275 a month. That figure may or may not surprise you, depending on how much you go out, but whereas we spend a ton to have fun these days, our elders rarely did. For our grandparents, fun looked like having a couple of friends come over for dinner, or sitting outside on lawn chairs talking during the summer. However, nowadays, it seems like unless events are Instagram worthy, they simply aren't making the cut. Tip 2: picking up extra work. Whenever you feel like my life is hard, try to take a step back and think how your grandparents used to live. They would walk miles to school, do a ton of manual labour, and many grandparents even had to fight in the war. Needless to say, our elders had no problem putting in a bit of elbow grease to get ahead, and I think that same approach is incredibly valuable today. In fact, it may even be mandatory. You may have never heard this crazy statistic before, but as of 2021, roughly 30% of all Americans had a side hustle. For instance, many people are driving for Uber or delivering food orders for money, and not because there's nothing good on Netflix. Now, while being in this situation isn't ideal, it does give us a chance to connect with our roots, roll up our sleeves, and make a bit of extra money. Plus, when you put this money to good use by investing in stocks or building up a real estate portfolio, you'll eventually be at a point where you no longer have to work at all, and that's something we would all love to enjoy one day. Tip 3: appreciating the value of downsizing. There's one thing that no one tells you when you end up buying your own home, and it's that it's basically a full-time job to keep it clean. You have to dust and sweep at least a couple of times a week, and this is the case with any size home you buy. Well, our elders got it right by not putting too much emphasis on the size of their homes, because from a work perspective alone, it's a lot of extra work. Not to mention, older generations had a very keen sense for how their spending decisions really impacted the quality of their lives. It seemed like they knew how much was enough and never felt the need to go beyond it, because working more, just to make some more money, ultimately detracted away from the things they valued most, like quality time with family and friends. For the financially savvy among us, they are buying smaller homes not because they can't afford bigger ones, but generally more space leads to more headaches. It means more things that can break, more things to clean, and ultimately more money being spent on your home than on experiences that you can cherish for a lifetime. Tip number 4: avoiding waste. Have you ever gone to your grandmother's house and seen the toothpaste tube rolled up to the tip? Chances are you have, because the more senior people in our lives are masters at avoiding waste. Many people can vividly recall that their grandparents would always ensure that they ate every last bite of their food at dinner, and while they just figured they wanted them to be well fed, many reflected on that time and realised that their grandparents treated them that way because when they were young they didn't have the privilege of excess food. For many, they only ate what they could manage to get their hands on, but despite now having access to more than they need, they maintain their stance on waste. For many people these days, waste is inevitable. For instance, they waste money letting a streaming service continually hitting their credit cards even though they haven't used a service in months. Alternatively, they fail to eat some of their groceries and regrettably have to throw them out. In fact, you may be wasting an opportunity right now to gently tap that like button below. So if you haven't already, then go ahead. I hear it's a lot of fun. Another form of waste people expose themselves to all the time is financial waste. They don't make their credit card payments on time and incur hefty interest charges, or they fail to negotiate their phone or cable bill and lose out on saving themselves hundreds of dollars a year. Most people would agree that our generation simply has a bit less appreciation for the dollar than those that came before us, and because they do have this appreciation, they ensure that absolutely nothing is wasted. Tip number 5, batching activities. One of the more vivid memories you may have of your grandparents relates to the list. Before they ever went to the store for groceries, they had every single item they wanted to get written down with prices and quantities. Why did they do this? A few reasons. First, they did this because one of the worst feelings in the world is getting home from the grocery store and realizing you forgot to buy milk for the next day's bowl of cereal. Second, they did this because they could organize their shopping and find the best deals possible. But most importantly, they did this to save time. When you know what you need, there's no mindless wandering around the store, you're in and out and you're on your way. Sadly, we've lost touch with this sense of mindful living. It seems like most people these days have their heads stuck in their phones all day and as such fail to commit the time to proper weekly planning. For many people, batching activities has been critical to their day-to-day financial success. For instance, they batch cook food to spend less time setting up and cleaning. They've run their washer and dryer while working from home. When you apply batching to things like buying groceries, you also save money not having to drive around town multiple times a week. Tip number 6, not comparing ourselves to others. When it comes to comparing ourselves to others, our grandparents had it easy. There was no Instagram, Facebook, there wasn't even internet back in those days. In fact, if you really think about it, the only people they compared themselves to were their neighbours and those who worked closely at their jobs. This isn't to say that our generation is screwed when it comes to falling into the social comparison trap, but what I am trying to get at is that we should look at their lifestyle as one to strive to adopt. What you may not know is that most of us these days are experiencing what's known as upward social comparison. As the name implies, this takes place when you are comparing yourself to someone who is in a more advanced position than yourself. For instance, someone who has a nice car, a better body, etc. The problem is, back in our grandparents' day, they saw one single person with a nicer car once a day or week. Nowadays, we see hundreds online every single day, which gives us a constant reminder of what we're missing out on, or how inferior we are to others. So what do? We opt out. More and more people these days are becoming aware of how apps like Instagram are impacting their mood. For instance, they get upset when they see kids half their age driving supercars, or they borrow their parents' car to get around. At a grander scale, people need to really think about what makes them happy. Chances are it's not material goods. Sure, would a brand new Ferrari make them happy? Probably for a week or two, but most material goods lose their novelty very fast. Tip number 7, being self-reliant. We've mentioned that older generations were not afraid to put in the work, and while we use the context of time spent making money, these same people tended to be rather handy too. For instance, your grandfather likely could literally fix anything in the house. You seldom heard of a plumber getting called or an electrician coming to the house, which upon reflection kind of sounds a bit unsafe. The point is that being able to tackle certain things on your own can save you a ton of money and avoid having you being taken advantage of by those who see you as financial prey. This isn't to say that you need to become the ultimate handyman or handywoman, far from it. There's a time and a place for being self-reliant, and we should talk about that more now. You see, those who become rich use their time more wisely than those who don't, and generally this time is used to make more money. This is why they will outsource low-value tasks like buying groceries or managing their emails, so they can focus on the activities that make them the most amount of money. This is where being self-reliant converges with being smart with your money. It makes sense to become self-reliant in activities that you cannot outlearn when hiring someone else in your place. For instance, if a plumber charges you $200 an hour and you presently sell your time for $50 an hour, then if you are able to gain proficiency in that skill, it will make for a smart time trade-off. On the contrary, if you identify that someone is willing to spend an hour getting your groceries for you for a cost of just $25, and you can use that time to make $50, then all of a sudden outsourcing makes more sense. This one strategy alone can help you take your wealth to new heights, And if you want to learn 9 other Frugal tips that you can start using right away, click on the next video and let's get started. If you enjoyed this video, please ensure to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future videos. Thanks for watching.